Hi, friend. It's your inner child calling. And they want churros. A new toy. And a new adventure. Or maybe 5. With the bestest besties on Earth. Find your moment at Walt Disney World Resort.
I'm Nicola Coughlan, and for BBC Radio 4, this is history's youngest heroes. Rebellion, risk, and the radical power of youth.
She thought, right, I'll just do it. She thought about others rather than herself.
12 stories of extraordinary young people from across history.
There's a real sense of urgency in them, that resistance has to be mounted, it has to be mounted now.
Follow history's youngest heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Grace Lynch, the managing editor here at Wonder Media Network, and I'm so excited to be guest hosting this episode of Womanica. This month, we're talking about architects. These women held fast to their visions for better futures, found potential in negative space, and built their creations from the ground up. Hundreds of years ago, a young woman came to rule the kingdom of Zazzau in modern-day northern Nigeria. As queen, she expanded the kingdom to the largest it had ever been and built earthen walls to surround and defend it. Some of these walls, still standing today, are known as Amina's walls. Please welcome Amina, Queen of Zazzau. What we know of Amina's story comes from Nigerian oral tradition and from the Kano Chronicles, a classic text of African history about the 7 Hausa states whose territory lay above where the Niger and Benue rivers meet in present-day Nigeria. These states were largely isolated until the 1300s, when missionaries from Mali arrived to introduce Islam. Amina was born around the year 1533 to King Nikitau, the 22nd ruler of Zazzau, and to Queen Bakwaturunku. Amina was the eldest of 3, with a younger brother and sister. The family's wealth was the result of the kingdom's prominence in trading textiles, metals, salt, and horses. Amina grew up spending time with her grandfather, immersed in his diplomatic and military affairs. As the legend goes, Amina's grandmother once caught her wielding a dagger as a child, which foreshadowed her path as a warrior. Indeed, as a young woman, Amina began to train with the royal guard and cavalry. She shadowed their expeditions and learned horseback riding, spear fighting, and archery. In 1566, Amina's parents died, and her younger brother became king. During this time, Amina earned a reputation as a fierce warrior. When her brother's reign ended only 10 years later, Amina ascended to the throne. The Hausa states were located in the middle of 3 major trade routes. This led to a lot of competition for power and control amongst the states. Shortly after becoming queen, Amina began a military campaign for more power and more land that would last the duration of her 34-year rule. Over this time, Queen Amina conquered several neighboring territories and cities with her large army. As a result, she controlled the critical trade routes, enriched her kingdom, and made the other Hausa states pay tributes to hers. Queen Amina had earthen walls built around all the new expanded borders of Zazzau, which was now bigger than it had ever been. The walls proved to be so successful as a defense system that all the other Hausa states emulated the structures. Queen Amina's reign would come to be remembered by these walls. Some still remain in northern Nigeria and are known as Amina's walls. It's unclear exactly when and where Queen Amina died, though legend suggests it was during a battle in 1610. She would have been around 77 years old. Though women played important roles in public life at the time, there were still limits that the patriarchal society imposed, limits Queen Amina forged a path through. Even now, beyond the violent and racist patriarchy instilled during British colonial rule in the 20th century, Queen Amina's legacy is remembered. Children in schools learn of her as a powerful leader. And in Lagos, there's a statue of her on a horse with a spear in hand. All month, we're talking about architects. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Jenny and Liz Kaplan for having me as a guest host. Talk to you tomorrow.
I'm Nicola Coughlin, and for BBC Radio 4, this is history's youngest heroes. Rebellion, risk, and the radical power of youth.
She thought, right, I'll just do it. She thought about others rather than herself.
12 stories of extraordinary young people from across history.
There's a real sense of urgency in them, that resistance has to be mounted now.
Follow History's Youngest Heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey sis, it's Dr. Joy from Therapy for Black Girls. We've had 400 episodes of conversations, growth, and healing. So we're celebrating. Join us for a special episode with internationally recognized yogi, Chelsea Jackson Roberts, as she shares wisdom on mindfulness, movement, and motherhood.
I waited later to have children, and I still have exactly what I knew that I wanted.
You don't want to miss this special episode. Listen to Therapy for Black Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.